The apartment had seemed perfect at first glance, spacious, affordable, and filled with natural light. Emma hadn't paid much attention to the antique mirror hanging in the hallway when she signed the lease. It was old, its ornate frame tarnished with age, but it blended into the background like any other piece of furniture. That changed on her first night. As she carried the last box inside, the mirror caught her eye. Something about it felt off, as if it didn't quite belong in the modern space. Curiosity tugged at her, and she stepped closer, studying her tired reflection. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, her hair mussed from the move. She sighed, running a hand through her messy waves, and then she saw it. Her reflection blinked a second after she did. Emma froze, her breath hitching. She blinked again, slowly, deliberately. The reflection followed, almost. There was a lag, a fraction of a second where the woman in the mirror stared back at her with unblinking eyes. Then, as if catching up, the reflection mimicked her. But it wasn't just the delay that terrified her. The face in the mirror wasn't quite hers. The eyes were darker, the smile sharper, as if something wearing her skin had gotten the details wrong. Emma stumbled back, her pulse hammering in her throat. She told herself it was exhaustion, the stress of the move playing tricks on her mind. But as she turned away, she could have sworn the reflection lingered, watching her go with a hunger that made her skin crawl. Emma's first week in the apartment had been peaceful, but the silence didn't last. It started with a faint rustling, like fabric brushing against fabric, drifting from the hallway where the antique mirror hung. At first, she blamed the old building's creaky pipes or the wind outside. But the sounds grew clearer, whispers, just beyond her hearing. She'd pause in front of the mirror, staring into its depths, searching for a sign of movement. Nothing, just her own tired reflection. Yet, at night, the whispers returned, murmuring in a language she couldn't understand. They slithered through the cracks of her dreams, tugging at the edges of her consciousness until she woke, heart pounding. One evening, as she washed her face in the bathroom, the whispers sharpened. They didn't just murmur, they called her. Emma. Her name curled around her like a cold breath, and she spun, expecting to see someone behind her. The hallway was empty. Trembling, she returned to the mirror. This time her reflection wasn't alone. A shadowy figure stood behind her, too tall, too still, its hollow eyes locked onto her own. Her breath hitched, but when she turned again, no one was there. The mirror showed the figure still watching, its fingers twitching as if eager to reach out. She backed away, refusing to look. But the whispers followed her, whispering promises she couldn't ignore. Let me in. Emma stood in front of the antique mirror, brushing her hair, when she noticed something strange. Her reflection's hand paused mid-stroke, lingering a fraction too long before continuing. A cold shiver ran down her spine. She tilted her head, and the reflection did the same. But a second later, as if it were thinking before obeying, Emma's breath hitched. She waved her hand experimentally, and the reflection copied, but its fingers twitched unnaturally, like it was resisting the motion. Later that evening, Sarah walked into the hallway and froze. Emma was standing inches from the mirror, whispering under her breath. "Who are you talking to?" Sarah asked, nudging her shoulder. Emma snapped out of her trance, her face pale. "No one," she muttered, but Sarah frowned. "You were having a full conversation, like someone was answering you." Emma's stomach dropped. She hadn't heard any replies, just her own voice. But as she glanced back at the mirror, her reflection grinned, teeth too sharp, before settling into a neutral expression. That night, Emma sat on the floor facing the mirror, determined to catch it in the act. She stayed perfectly still, watching. Minutes passed, then, her reflection blinked. Without her, Emma's blood turned to ice. The reflection leaned forward, pressing a hand against the glass. Emma recoiled, but the reflection didn't mirror her. It tilted its head, studying her with dark, hollow eyes. A whisper slithered from the glass. "We see you." Emma scrambled back, her heart pounding. The mirror wasn't just haunted, it was alive. And it was watching her every move. Emma jolted awake in the middle of the night, her skin prickling with an unnatural chill. The room was too dark, the air too still. Then she heard it. A slow, wet sound, like something peeling itself free from a surface. Her breath caught as she turned her head toward the hallway mirror. Moonlight seeped through the curtains, casting a pale glow on the glass, and what she saw made her blood freeze. Her reflection was moving on its own. Not just moving, stepping forward. The edge of the mirror rippled like water as the figure leaned out, its limbs too long, its smile too wide. Its eyes were black voids, swallowing the faint light. Emma tried to scream, but her throat locked in terror as the thing, wearing her face, but warped, wrong, stepped fully into the room. "I've been waiting for you," it whispered, its voice a grotesque imitation of hers, layered with something far older. Emma scrambled back, knocking over her lamp. The crash shattered the silence, but the entity didn't flinch. It simply tilted its head, studying her with a predator's patience. "You don't belong here," it murmured, stretching a hand toward her. its fingers curled like spider legs twitching with hunger. She screamed then, raw and desperate, but the sound seemed muffled, as if the air itself was smothering it. The entity lunged its grip like ice as it seized her arm. Emma kicked, twisted, but its strength was unnatural. Inch by inch, it dragged her toward the mirror, its ghastly grin widening. It's my turn now. The glass shimmered, and for a heartbeat, Emma saw countless faces behind it, screaming, begging, trap. Then the world flipped, and she was falling. Into the mirror, into the dark. The last thing she heard before the glass sealed shut was her own voice, laughing. Emma thrashed against the entity's grip, her nails digging into its cold, distorted flesh, but its strength was inhuman. It dragged her closer to the mirror's surface, its hollow eyes burning into hers. Panic surged through her as her fingers brushed the glass, and then slipped through like water. The world tilted violently as she was yanked forward, her scream cut short as the apartment vanished behind her. She woke with a gasp, her hands pressing against something solid yet eerily yielding. The mirror, she was inside it. The glass stretched before her like a shimmering barrier, and on the other side, her apartment looked just as she'd left it. Except now, the entity stood in her place. It smoothed its hands down the front of its borrowed sweater, tilting its head as it examined its stolen face in the mirror. Emma pounded against the glass, screaming Sarah's name, but no sound escaped. Sarah wandered into the hallway, yawning. "You okay, Em? You look off." The entity laughed. Emma's laugh, but wrong, too sharp. "Just tired," it said. Sarah shrugged and walked away. Emma's breath hitched as the entity turned back to the mirror, its lips curling into a smile that didn't reach its empty eyes. It raised a hand, pressing its palm against the glass where Emma's own hand was trapped. "Don't worry," it whispered, voice dripping with false comfort. "I'll take good care of your life." Emma recoiled, stumbling back into the dim, endless space behind her. The apartment beyond the glass grew smaller, distorted, as if she were sinking deeper into the mirror's grasp. She was a prisoner now, forced to watch as the entity played her part perfectly, while she faded into the darkness. Emma's fingers trembled as she traced the gouges in the glass, her breath fogging the mirrored surface. The first mark was just a single word, Hail P, but as she pressed closer, she realized the entire wall of her prison was covered in them. Desperate scratches, names, dates, and frantic pleas from the others who had been taken before her. The realization hit her like ice water. She wasn't alone here. The mirror had done this before. The more she searched, the more names she found. Af Daniel, 2005. Some were etched deep as if carved with fingernails broken by the effort. Others were barely visible, fading into the glass. Emma's chest tightened as she read one message over and over day. "It wears your face, but it's not you." The words sent a jolt of terror through her. How many others had stood where she was now, trapped behind the glass while something else lived their lives? She stumbled back, her reflection, no, the entity, mocking her with a slow, knowing smile from the other side. The longer she stared, the more she saw the truth. The face wasn't just mimicking her anymore. It was changing, adapting. Small details were off. The curve of its lips, the coldness in its eyes. It was becoming better at being her. And soon, no one would ever notice the difference. Tears blurred her vision as she pounded on the glass, screaming for Sarah, for anyone. But no sound escaped the mirror. The only response was the faint echo of her own panic, bouncing back at her. The whispers returned, but now they weren't just taunting her. They were the voices of the others, trapped just like her, warning her in fragmented, broken sentences. "It's too late. You're one of us now. And worst of all, it's already replaced you." Emma clawed at the glass, her fingers slipping against the cold, unyielding surface. The world beyond the mirror seemed so close, yet impossibly far. She could see the entity, her reflection, but not her, moving through her apartment as if it had always belonged there. It laughed with Sarah, made coffee in her favorite mug, and scrolled through her phone with practiced ease. No one noticed the subtle differences. The way its smile curled a little too wide, or how its eyes lingered a little too long on the mirror, taunting her. Inside the mirror, the air was thick and stale, pressing against her like a second skin. The walls of her prison were covered in frantic scribbles, names, dates, pleas for help carved into the glass by those who had come before her. Emma traced the scratches with trembling fingers, realizing too late that she was just another name to add to the list. The mirror had existed for decades, maybe longer, always hungry, always waiting. She screamed until her throat was raw, pounded against the glass until her hands bled, but the more she fought, the weaker she became. The entity outside grew stronger, more solid, as Emma faded into the background. Her reflection in the mirror dimmed, her features blurring, until she was little more than a shadow. A whisper lost among the others. And then, silence. The mirror stood empty again save for the faintest imprint of a face in the glass, watching, waiting. The apartment door creaked open as a new tenant stepped inside, their eyes drifting toward the antique mirror in the hallway. The cycle began in